This is one of the big hits from the Nutcracker ballet. Originally it's for orchestra of course, but Tchaikovsky also made a piano version himself, and this movement works perfectly fine to play as a solo piece, I think. In the ballet it comes when the main character Clara and the Nutcracker prince goes back to his kingdom, the land of sweets, and the Sugar Plum Fairy welcomes them with this dance. And he really captures this fantastical air of a magical land, not least by using the celeste, a keyboard instrument of tiny bells. But it also has a kind of restrained excitement or anticipation that comes from the gently, lightly tripping, almost sneaking around over some quirky tunes. Let's have a look at it. The two most salient features are the rhythm and articulation. We have very regular beats with 8 notes, because it's music for dancing, and then these sneaky staccato chords on the offbeat. And the harmony is E in the bass as a pedal point, grounding it, and then these kind of different chromatic shades looking around from E minor, which is the key, but always coming back to E minor. And then we get the melody on top. This is the celeste part in 6, and we get 16th notes, the same chords in the accompaniment. It's chromatic, and this iconic tune. Chromatic jingle bells in the high register. Some kind of closing light cadence here, E minor, A minor, play go with the F sharp. And then another iconic moment, it's the bassoon plays the scale. So spanning a tritone, it's like something is off is the general impression of this music all the time. The same type of bells, different route harmonically, and we end up on B major, which is a dominant, and another type of closing cadence. It's a more spicy type. It's F sharp, it's a dominant to B, so secondary dominant, F sharp 7, but with a flat 5 instead of. Slightly more spicy. And continuing to E minor. So here we get a repetition of all the material. So this phrase of 4 bars is always like this with dance music and Tchaikovsky, and the combination, it's a repetition of the material. Second time now, we get something new. So this is interesting harmonically. It's the circular fifth, all major dominant chords pointing forward all the time. It's the motive of the scale increasing, and also the articulation. In the orchestra it's the celeste playing with pedal, so I think it makes more sense to play it so like not super staccato as it says, but with pedal. So it's almost like a tie. Like that's, for me, that's more similar to the original orchestra. And harmonically, circular fifths, so we start with F sharp 7, going to B, and B7, to E7, A7, D7, G, so all the way, F sharp, yeah. And then from G, straight back to E minor with a dominant. And this like ominous accented hit on the offbeat last 8 notes. So in the orchestra this is also sustained note with several instruments, but with piano we need to lift the pedal when we start the next. So here comes the next section, more tripping around with chromatic sneaky chords. still, so landing on B7 again, B dominant, and then finally some legato melody here. Same hit again. In the piano version, Tchaikovsky writes it in this way, with alternating with a third, but in the original it's a wind instrument playing a repeated note. So for some reason he changed that in the piano, and I think it's because it gets slightly more repetitive to play it on piano rather than if you have a nice sound of a wind instrument. But I actually prefer a compromise, so to get the repeated note for the first eighth note. So I play it like this, because then you have another voice coming in with some nice suspensions. Okay, moving on, we get the same chords. Well, this is exactly the same 4 bars repeated again. And also accents on the offbeat eighth notes that's not on the beats. Okay, now we get a shorter segment of this. And kind of increasing the tension. Wants to go here, we end up on a B again, and now it's the cadenza, and yeah, sprinkling fairy dust is what this feels like, I think. Really lovely place and very well written for the piano. Not that hard at all, quite easy, because it's so well just a chord for each hand and you play it. Good way to practice arpeggio in a real piece of music. Harmonically, it's all the time revolving around the B7 in different inversions, but with some chromatic suspensions before. So before the first B major we have a D7, so like all the time notes next to these notes go here, so D7 to B7, and then the next one it's F major 7 to B7, and the third one A minor 7 flat 5 or A half diminished, and just repeat those. Is it 3 times? Only 3 times. Okay, fourth time. And then we have the scale down again. These really sound like jingle bells. We have this diminished chord in exactly this register. Like you really hear someone tolling the Christmas bells. Anyway, this is just a normal recapitulation of the main theme. The same material, but with some variations. So it's 1 octave higher, as we've already seen. Also in the orchestra, the accompaniment plays a slightly more busy version. Instead of just this, it plays. But in the piano version it's not there. Maybe you could add it, but it also works fine just playing the eighth notes. So yeah, it's the same, but yeah, something even more pressing with a very high register. So repeat again. And the final rundown of the circular fifth. And here for the ending, so there's 2 different endings. In the Suite for Orchestra, which is a collection of 8 pieces that's meant to be played as a concert performance, The piece ends here because that's like a normal way, a good musical ending of the movement. And then you use the version in the first time that goes back to E minor. So when you get here, you go and end with the E minor on the offbeat 8th note. But in the ballet version, there's a whole new coda that's presto and really fast for some finishing pirouettes of the ballerina to the big applause of the audience. It's much, much harder than the rest of the piece for piano. So it makes sense to end here for that reason too, if you want to play it. But in that case, it ends with a dominant. And then something like this. But I'm also happy with this ending. Thanks for watching Sonata Secrets, and a special shout out to my Patreon sponsor Alex in this video.